Who told you to paint my bedroom? The rollers stopped halfway up the wall. I stood in the doorway of my master bedroom, still holding my work bag, staring at plastic sheets covering the floor and two strangers repainting the deep blue walls I had chosen when I bought the house. Then Vanessa stepped out of my walk-in closet with 3 paint samples in her hand. "Oh, good, you're home early." She smiled like I had interrupted her project instead of finding strangers inside my house. "We're renovating it before moving in." For a second, I thought I had misunderstood her. Then my brother Marcus appeared behind her and nodded. Downstairs, I heard my mother laugh. Dad called up, "Don't make this into a big thing, Nadia." That was when I realized everyone, except me, seemed to know that my bedroom had apparently been given away. I didn't yell. I reached for my phone. And the moment Vanessa saw me taking pictures, her smile finally slipped. I was 34 years old. I had bought that house with my own money, paid the mortgage myself, and never once asked Marcus or my parents to contribute a cent. Yet there they were, rearranging my life like I was a guest. Mom came upstairs, shaking her head. "Marcus and Vanessa are 2 people. You're 1 person. Obviously, they need the master bedroom more." "Need it for what?" Vanessa looked almost annoyed that she had to explain. "For when we move in." I turned toward Marcus. "You're moving into my house." "Our lease is ending," he said. "It makes sense." And nobody thought to ask me. Mom laughed again. "Oh, Nadia, family shouldn't have to make formal appointments with each other." Dad pointed toward the hallway. "The smaller bedroom is perfectly fine for you." I looked at the half-painted wall, then at my framed photographs stacked carelessly on the floor. One of the painters cleared his throat. "Ma'am, we were told the homeowner approved everything." "I am the homeowner." Silence. Vanessa folded her arms. I walked past her, photographed the paint cans, the furniture pushed against the wall, and every box they had moved. Then I turned to the contractor. "Can I see the work order?" Vanessa scoffed. "Seriously?" "Yes." The contractor handed me his tablet. There it was. The job had been booked under Vanessa's name, with a note saying the homeowner had authorized complete access to the master bedroom. I looked up slowly. "Who gave you a key?" Mom answered proudly. "I did. I still have your emergency copy." Vanessa relaxed again and nudged Marcus. "See," she whispered, "I told you she'd get over it." I said nothing. I simply photographed the authorization screen and slipped my phone back into my pocket. Because they thought the worst thing I could do was tell them to leave. They had no idea what my security system had already recorded. "Please stop working." The 2 painters looked from me to Vanessa. She immediately stepped forward. "Don't stop, we're paying you." The contractor lowered his tablet. "Ma'am, she says she owns the house." "I do," I said, "and I never authorized this renovation." That settled it. The painters put down their rollers. The contractor apologized, gathered his crew, and promised nothing else would be touched until ownership and authorization were confirmed. The second the front door closed, Marcus turned on me. "Was embarrassing us really necessary?" I stared at him. "You hired people to renovate my bedroom." "We're trying to make this work for everyone." That was when he finally explained what they had planned. Their apartment lease expired in 12 days. Instead of renewing it, Marcus and Vanessa had decided they would move into my house and save money until they could afford another place. "How long?" I asked. Marcus shrugged. "Until we're back on our feet." 3 months, 6, a year. Why does everything need a deadline? Vanessa walked past us. "The movers are already booked for Saturday, Nadia. Changing everything now would be ridiculous." I turned toward her. "You booked movers." Mom sighed dramatically. "Your brother needs help. You have 3 bedrooms and live here alone. What exactly are you losing?" "My right to decide who lives in my house." Dad shook his head. "There you go, making everything technical." "No, I'm making it simple. Nobody is moving in." Marcus actually laughed. It was the same laugh I had heard for years whenever I finally objected to something, because everyone expected me to complain quietly and eventually surrender. I faced Mom. "Give me my emergency key." Her expression hardened. "Absolutely not." "Excuse me. I'm your mother. Parents should have access in case something happens." That key was for emergencies. Giving it to Marcus so he could renovate my bedroom wasn't an emergency. Mom crossed her arms. I was helping my son. I walked away before the argument could circle again. Upstairs, however, I found something I hadn't noticed before. 3 cardboard boxes were sitting beside the smaller bedroom. Written across them in black marker were the words, "Nadia spare room." They hadn't merely discussed moving me. They had already started doing it. I opened the first box. Clothes. The second contained books and personal documents from my bedroom. Inside the third, one of my favorite framed photographs had been shoved beneath several other items. The glass was cracked across the corner. I took pictures of every box and the damaged frame. Then I sent Marcus, Vanessa, Mom, and Dad the same written message. "Effective immediately, none of you has permission to enter my house, authorize anyone else to enter, alter the property, remove my belongings, or move anything into the house. Marcus and Vanessa will not be moving in." Marcus read it. Mom read it. Dad read it. Then Vanessa responded. A single laughing emoji. I stared at it for a few seconds before locking my bedroom door. They still thought this was another argument they could outlast. That night, after everyone had finally left, I sat alone at my kitchen table and opened the security app on my phone. I selected that day's date. Entry records appeared first. Then camera recordings. Marcus arriving. Vanessa behind him. The contractors entering. Mom standing at the door. Everything had been captured. I connected my phone to my laptop and began downloading every file. The next evening, Mom called and said, "Come over, we're settling this tonight." When I arrived at my parents' house, I immediately understood what she meant by "we asterisk." Marcus and Vanessa were already sitting in the living room. Dad was beside them, and 2 close relatives had been invited too. This wasn't a conversation. It was an audience. Vanessa spoke first. "Our movers are already scheduled. Now Nadia is threatening to leave us without anywhere to live because she doesn't want to share one bedroom." "One bedroom," I repeated. Mom leaned forward. "You know what she means." "No, I'd like everyone here to understand exactly what happened." Marcus groaned. "Here we go." He stood and addressed the room as if he were proposing something generous. "Nadia keeps ownership of the house. Obviously. Vanessa and I use the master bedroom because there are 2 of us. Nadia takes one of the other rooms. We'll help with groceries when we can." I stared at him. "You're offering me permission to keep ownership of my own house." One of the relatives looked down. Vanessa's face tightened. "You're deliberately making it sound ridiculous." "I don't need to make it sound like anything." I placed copies of the contractor paperwork and photographs on the coffee table. "Vanessa, did you hire these painters?" "Yes, because we were preparing the room." "Did I authorize you?" "Your mother gave us the key." I turned toward Mom. "Did I ever tell you that you could give Marcus my emergency key?" She hesitated. Everyone noticed. "No," she finally admitted, "but I shouldn't need permission to help my own son." There it was. For the first time, nobody laughed. I pointed to the contractor paperwork. They entered my house while I was working. They moved my belongings, started repainting my bedroom, and planned to move in without asking me. Dad frowned. "You're turning a family issue into some kind of legal case." "I'm stating what happened." Mom's voice sharpened. "Nadia, you have always been the reasonable one. Don't become selfish now just because you own a nice house." That sentence explained more than she intended. They weren't asking me to be reasonable. They were counting on the version of me who hated conflict enough to surrender. I stood. Marcus, cancel the movers. Vanessa shook her head. No. Then they can arrive Saturday and discover they have nowhere to unload. I looked at Mom. And your emergency key no longer works. Marcus laughed. What did you do? Change the locks? I changed your access. He leaned back with a smirk. What are you going to do next, Nadia? Call the police on your own family. Nobody spoke. I gathered my paperwork. Then I walked out. From the driveway, I made a call. I explained that people had entered my home without authorization, provided access to contractors, moved my belongings, and begun altering the property. I also explained that I had previously restricted the emergency key in writing. Then I mentioned the cameras. The person on the other end asked whether I still had the original recordings. Yes. Do not edit or delete anything, they said. Keep the footage exactly as it is. An officer will need to see it. The next morning, I sat across from an officer with my laptop open between us. I didn't have to make the situation sound worse than it was. I just had to show him what happened. First came the security footage. Marcus walked up to my house while I was at work. Mom was with him. Vanessa followed. Mom handed over the emergency key, and minutes later the contractors arrived. Then came the access log. The exact time the door opened was recorded. Next, I showed the contractor's work order with Vanessa's name and the statement that the homeowner had approved access. She isn't the homeowner, the officer asked. No. And you never authorized the work? Never. I showed him the photographs of my bedroom, the boxes labeled *** Nadia, spare room ***, and the cracked frame. Then I opened something my family apparently had forgotten existed. A message I had sent months earlier after Mom had used my emergency key for a non-emergency. It stated plainly that the key was for genuine emergencies only, that nobody else was permitted to use it, and that my parents could not authorize anyone to enter my house. Mom had replied to that message. Fine, understood. The officer read it twice. Suddenly, yesterday's argument about family permission looked very different. Everything connected. Mom knew the restriction. Marcus received the key anyway. Vanessa arranged the contractors. And all of them entered while I was away. That was why I had photographed everything instead of standing upstairs screaming. My house had already been keeping a timeline for me. After providing the records, I went home and finished securing the property. The locks were changed. The alarm codes were replaced. My parents' access was removed completely. I also contacted the contractor. No work is authorized at this address unless it comes directly from me, I told him. You have my word, he said. We've documented the dispute on the account. Nobody else can approve anything. By lunchtime, the house was secure again. Marcus and Vanessa apparently still believed none of this would matter. At 1:17 p.m., Vanessa texted. Movers still available Saturday. What time can we bring the bedroom furniture? I looked at the message, then locked my phone without answering. A few hours later, it rang. Mom. I answered. Nadia. Her voice was different. No laughter. No lecture about family. What happened? What do you mean? Someone contacted us about your house. I stayed silent. They asked about the key, she continued. They asked whether I gave it to Marcus. Did you tell them you did? Nadia, why are strangers getting involved in a private family matter? Did you tell them you gave Marcus my key after I specifically told you not to? Silence. Then I heard Dad in the background. Give me the phone. There was movement, and suddenly his voice came through the speaker. Nadia, what have you done? I documented what happened. What does that mean? It means I told the truth. Another pause. Then Dad's voice rose. Nadia, why did the police come to us? Because you entered my house without my permission. Dad went quiet. I could hear Mom in the background saying something I couldn't make out. Finally, Dad lowered his voice. We didn't enter your house. Marcus did. And how did Marcus get the key? Another silence. That was the part none of them could explain away. This wasn't a disagreement over who deserved the larger bedroom. Marcus and Vanessa had entered a house they didn't own, using an emergency key Mom had no authority to give them. Vanessa hired contractors and claimed the homeowner had approved the renovation. They moved my belongings. They packed my things into boxes labeled for the spare room. And they planned to move into my house before I had agreed to any of it. Most importantly, Mom couldn't claim she misunderstood the purpose of the key. Months earlier, after she had used it for something that wasn't an emergency, I had put the restriction in writing. Emergency use only. Do not give this key to anyone else. You cannot authorize anyone to enter my home. Her reply had been equally clear. Fine, understood. Now the security footage showed her standing outside my house and handing that same key to Marcus. The access records showed when the door opened. The cameras showed Marcus and Vanessa entering. The contractor's paperwork showed Vanessa had arranged the renovation. Their messages showed they intended to move in. My photographs showed what had already been changed and damaged. There was no hidden ownership dispute. No confusion about whose house it was. It was mine. And for the first time, being family wasn't going to erase that fact. Marcus called me later that afternoon. He didn't even say hello. You seriously reported this? I reported what happened. You could have talked to me. I almost laughed. I did talk to you. That's not what I mean. You stood inside my bedroom while strangers painted my walls and told me you were moving in. I told you no. You laughed. That doesn't mean you involve police. Okay. I leaned against my kitchen counter. Let me ask you something. If I took a key to your apartment while you were working, let myself inside, packed your clothes into another room, hired painters and announced I was moving into your bedroom, what would you call that? Nothing. Marcus. That's different. How? He couldn't answer. Vanessa took the phone from him. We genuinely thought you'd agree eventually. That sentence stopped me. You thought I'd agree eventually. Yes, once you calmed down. Vanessa, thinking I'll surrender later isn't permission now. She went silent. The movers were canceled. Marcus and Vanessa had to find legitimate temporary housing when their lease ended instead of simply taking over part of mine. They were also responsible for the cost of restoring what they had changed and replacing the belongings damaged during the unauthorized renovation. The contractor cooperated fully once he understood that I had never approved the work. Mom reacted differently. She called me days later, still convinced the greatest offense was what I had done to the family's image. Do you understand how humiliating this has been? She asked. For you. For all of us, people know now. I looked around my half-restored bedroom. Mom, nobody outside this family would know anything if you had respected one word. What word? No. She didn't respond. That conversation changed something permanently. My parents no longer had an emergency key. They no longer had alarm codes. Their access to my security system was gone. If they wanted to visit, they called first. If I said no, there was no spare key waiting somewhere to turn my answer into a suggestion. Marcus lost something too. Not just the free place he expected to live. He lost the certainty that I would always give in first. And Vanessa never got her renovated master bedroom. A few weeks later, I had the room professionally restored. But I didn't repaint it the same deep blue. I chose something new. Not because Vanessa had ruined the old color for me, but because after everything that happened, I wanted the room to reflect a decision nobody else had made. Mine. When the work was finished, I carried my photographs back upstairs one by one. The damaged frame had been replaced. My books went back where I wanted them. My clothes stayed in my closet. There were no boxes marked NADIA, spare room asterisk waiting in the hallway. There were no relatives downstairs deciding how much space I deserved. Just my house. Quiet again. For years, I thought avoiding conflict kept peace in the family. What it actually did was teach certain people that if they pushed hard enough, I would eventually move aside. They learned differently when they tried to move me out of my own bedroom. They came into my house, believing my silence meant yes. They left understanding that my home and my answer were mine.